Today, we discuss this 2026 rookie running back class. Incredibly exciting prospect near the top. But we're going to really just digest whether or not our normal strategy of building around third and fourth round running back rookie picks is viable in this draft class. Stick around for strategy and more. And welcome into the Dyno Construction Podcast. Justin joined with David and JP here. Of course, we're really excited about some of the highest end that's going on here, and there's definitely some potential for RBs 2, 3, 4, who knows, to really, potentially make some differences for us. How are you guys feeling just about this RB class?
I feel similarly to most people that I don't love this class. There's a lot of running backs that went back to another year in college, and I wish they did not. Like Hollywood Smothers, Mark Fletcher, Justice Haynes really made this class hurt a little bit more. When you dive deep into it, still want to take my shots, and I do like a couple of players in tier 2 a lot. I will say, I think those guys are getting pushed down narrative-wise because of the class depth being weak overall. But yeah, it's not as great as we wanted to see.
Yeah, I think that tier 2, you'd normally like to see a couple more running backs in between, maybe an extra tier in there. So I think that's probably why they're getting pushed down. There's no real mid-first consideration probably for these guys. Like you said, it would have been nice if some of these extra guys would have declared this year. And really, as we were putting this graphic together, a lot of these guys are older than I thought. I knew some of them were old. I didn't know this many. As we get to the end here, you'll see a lot of 24, 23, not a whole lot of 21. So I get it, NIL, especially at running back. But also, you want to get that second contract a little quicker if you're a running back. I think this is the position getting hit by NIL the most, though, in fantasy.
Yeah, definitely. Some interesting ages we're going to see in this tier video here for this position, where really we're looking for 22, 21. And yeah, we have a tier where I think the average age is over 23. That's going to be, of course, not one of our highest tiers. But that being said, if you love this tier video, we've already pumped out QB and wide receiver. They are on our channel here. Hit that like, hit that subscribe to make sure you don't miss the tight end video that comes out last. We're giving you, I believe it is 61 total rookies. We're giving you a little bit of a breakdown on, our little statistic page here through this tier series. So that's a full 5 rounds of rookies. I don't personally have any 5-round. That's not entirely true. I don't have many 5-round rookie drafts. I guess I do have one. So, we're taking some deep dives on these pre-draft. So would love for you guys to follow those other ones. Hit that subscribe so you don't miss any of the rest of our content. All that being said, nothing crazy. Going to be the guy you guys all expect. David, go ahead and take us away with a shocker as our tier 1. Large tier.
Emmett Johnson. No, I'm just kidding. Jeremiah Love. Of course, it's him. He's the 101 everywhere, as he should be. I'm a little worried about going to end up and how his year 1's going to go. We see a lot of these high-end rookies have mediocre year 1s. Is he going to end up in Tennessee, and then he's going to be like RB18 on the year, and we're going to see flashes, but everyone's going to be a little disappointed. He's a stud. Maybe he's not going to be your RB1 this year, depending on where he lands, but I wouldn't be concerned about it. I don't imagine he's going to move off the 101 for anybody wherever he goes. So
I don't think we really have to talk too much about this one. I think he's been the 101 for so long, and he's been in a tier of his own for so long, right? People are saying in a tier with Bijan as far as a prospect goes. Of course, we would never in any stretch of our imagination put him up with Bijan before he plays and does something. But I do think last year's 101 is an interesting conversation. JP, Janty or Love? Without knowing a landing spot, can you go the direction of the incoming rookie?
It's same tier for me. So it is tough. I will say I think Jeremiah Love has more upside. He can be goal line receiving back, like higher end receiving back, and has more explosiveness than Ashton Genty. So if you put a gun in my head and make me choose, then I might take Love right now just based off what we saw from Ashton Genty's rookie season.
I loved a lot of the advanced metrics and just what Genty did with an incredibly inefficient offensive line. Spent a little bit of money on that, although I think defense is more of what they, as far as their biggest capital expenditures, I believe they got a center in free agency and a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback coming in as well. I think I slightly lean Genty just because I've seen him be a good NFL player and just be able to beat guys in the NFL, even if his linemen weren't. And David, I'll let you tie break for us real quick before we move on to tier 2.
Keep it quick because I do think it's really close, and I'm not going to fault you for going either way. I'll just go with Genty. I do think the Raiders situation is improving. I think we've seen some flashes in the NFL already. He's got that year 1 out of his way. I think he's primed for a a top 10 at least, maybe a top 6 finish this year.
And we'll be moving on to tier 3 in a hurry here. We'll be moving on to tier 2 in a hurry here. It's a 3-man tier that I'd be pretty surprised if all 3 of these guys actually wind up as tier 2 for us after the NFL draft, but it's really hard to separate them until the NFL does it for us. Those 3 guys are going to be, well, a teammate, Jadarian Price, Emmett Johnson, and Jonah Coleman here. And it's all 3 22-year-old guys. I know that we've kind of had a Emmett Johnson love fest on the podcast. And JP, I believe you have the claim to fame as the first one in the podcast to really be going, although maybe I'm wrong. Whichever of one of you guys is the first guy, the one who wants to claim it as the first person to really be on his train, go ahead and tell us why we've loved him for so long.
I think it's a tie, but you go ahead, JP.
I think he's arguably the best receiving back in this class. I mean, Love is right up there with him. Looking since 2014 with running backs in the Power 4 conference with at least 80 receptions, he is the 5th highest missed tackles forced per reception rate, right? That's Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Najee Harris, and Breece Hall. His missed tackles forced per attempt on the ground is already really good at 0.27. I just love that in both facets. He's just creating more than there really is for him. Yards after contact per attempt, I've seen some people talking about how it's a little bit lower for Emmett just because he doesn't have those breaking of contact on the defender and then he just busts one for 60, 70 yards. He doesn't have that on his film. If you were to cap that number for any run over 10 yards, that he would do really good because he is creating a lot of yards, like more that there is for him consistently. He's just not breaking them free, for the big home runs. So, I mean, yeah, that's a negative. But, I mean, I think you see a lot of guys who just have this high down-to-down success rates, like Kyron Williams comes to mind, keep the offense on schedule, be a pass-catching threat. So, personally, I still really, really like him, but the combine does make me nervous about his draft capital specifically.
Kyron's an interesting one there. I agree. It's really, he doesn't have the top end speed. If he was a little bit faster, I think have him a little bit higher on their boards. For me, my RB2 is Jonah Coleman. Mentioned maybe putting him in a tier of his own, but we're just not. I don't think as a group we feel that strongly. I didn't feel strongly enough to try and make a major case for that, but I just feel like, especially looking at his season in 2024, was a really good season. Great production, great efficiency metrics. He looked the part. Last year, still solid numbers, but definitely started strong and then he kind of fizzled out. And it wasn't just because of the injury. There was an injury and it was a minor injury. It's nothing to worry about for his pro career, but he was kind of fizzling out a little before that. But you still look at these numbers from last year. I mean, 3.5 yards after contact per attempt, almost a quarter of the time he's forcing a missed tackle. Like, these are pretty good numbers, almost 2 yards per route run. Again, he's not a home run hitter either. He's a small guy. He's pretty stocky, but I think he's a 3-down player in the NFL. If he gets to the right spot, I think he could be a pretty darn good RB2 for this class.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He has that ability. He can do a little bit of everything, and I really do think he could be that 3-down guy in the right situation. Just worry that if he does not get enough of the work, or if he has a guy that is taking away either the goal line or passing work from him, might not meet that ceiling. The guy that I've been a little bit less in on just the whole time, Jadarian Price, the other guy. Of course, he's got some phenomenal metrics, right? Best on the screen in yards after contact per attempt. Best on the screen in missed tackles forced per attempt. Best on the screen in 10-plus yard rushes per attempt. Best on the screen out of these 3 guys in elusivity. But it's a very small sample size. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what the NFL does with this guy. I'm just going to go ahead and listen to what they do. If he is a 3rd-round pick and he's drafted at the 1-2 turn, in this specific class, I'm going to be honest, I'm just going to be seeing what else I can do with that pick, probably. If he is at the 203, 204, I'm starting to be much more interested in him there. But if he's a 2nd-round pick, some team really kind of invested him, a team with opportunity, where he could be the guy there. I do think that 1-2 turn is a place that I'm starting to really consider any of these players here. I'd probably agree I'd go Coleman right now, like David said, my RB1 in this tier, so my RB2 overall, but I'm pretty willing to listen to the NFL and make any changes based on landing spots and draft capital. That being said, JP, can you go ahead and read tier 3 as we start to get a little murkier and our tiers start to get just a little progressively larger as we go on?
Yeah, this tier is still interesting. Just have some major red flags. We got Mike Washington, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, and Damon Claiborne. I really wish we saw Nick Singleton run at the combine, and maybe he would have got that Mike Washington bump. It's just his year was bad, and for Katron Allen to be the lead guy and kind of phase Singleton out most of the year, that is just very concerning. He's just an awesome athlete. I just question his feel and his vision at times. But you put him in the right offense, I still think he could be good. I mean, Justin, he's been a guy that you like, right?
I just like guys that are athletic freaks, are young, and show the ability to catch. And if you take this season off, be a pretty productive runner. Call me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you because I'd say he's the most upside in this tier for sure. I mean, I know Mike Washington killed the combine, but Singleton's got a higher receiving ceiling, and he did it for a lot longer. Mike Washington, I mean, wow, the RAS score was a 10, I believe, right, David?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it was a 10. But if you look at his first 4 seasons, he did not do much. He really did not. And he was not even in the Power 4 to start his career and didn't do much against smaller competition. That worries me. But this year, he clearly took a huge step forward, almost 4 yards after contact per attempt. One of the best running back athletes we've ever seen. And at least he got to right around that 1 yard per route run, showing a little bit of upside as a receiver. At least maybe he can be capable. So he's somebody I want to take a swing or two on, but his profile still makes me nervous.
I do have to say, even though Singleton has been my guy for a while, just because I liked before the season, I liked his profile better than Allen. The passing proficiency that he has, the size, the speed, just the freak athlete, and a couple years younger. Allen really did have a great year when everything else was crashing and burning around him. And I think you almost have to value it more given the fact that the rest of the situation for everyone else was just on fire. And he's just going to beat Singleton in all of the metrics we have on the screen besides yards per route run. The PFF elusivity score almost over double, in fact, right? He really, I do think, has the ability to do some great things if he gets drafted into a good situation. However, I do worry that we might be seeing Quinshawn Judkins light in Allen, it's going to get a lot of first and second down, some touchdown opportunities, but just not quite the athlete that Judkins was, just to give a comp from last year's rookie class, but the Walmart version. So going to be very interested in seeing what he does, but he really did impress. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's at the top of this tier post NFL draft, getting some decent day 2 capital. David, I know you're in love.
I put him somewhere between Nick Chubb and Brian Robinson. I just don't know where on the spectrum because those non-receiving profiles, they just don't have a lot of upside in fantasy, but he might be somebody that we can flex, for years potentially.
Yeah, I think Allen's got a pretty high floor, probably the highest, well, actually definitely the highest floor in this group in my opinion. I think the only guy we haven't talked about here, Damon Claiborne, I've advocated for putting him in this tier. I think his ceiling is a little capped simply because he's small. He's under 190 pounds when he weighed in at the combine. He ran a sub 4.40. I know his elusive rating is pretty low according to PFF, but when you watch him, he looks pretty elusive to me. Decent forced tackles numbers, pretty explosive when you look at his rate of 10 plus yard carries. You see 0.6 yards per out run, you're a little worried, but I got a little context here. 2 years ago, it was over 1.5. And 2 years ago, they had a quarterback who did not run the ball at all. Last year, they had a quarterback who liked to run the ball. So you always, not always, but generally you lose the check down as a part of the offense when you have a quarterback that runs the ball. I think Claiborne's yards per out run really took a hit due to that fact. So I do think he can thrive as an efficiency-driven back who's a good complement to someone. Not going to be able to handle the full workload at 188 pounds. He's just not. But I do think he could be a good complement to someone who, you got a flex guy because he can get a big play touchdown in any game.
And I do have to say, we're much less worried about that 190 pounds than we were a while back, right? We've seen people sub 200 do it. We've seen people sub 190 do it. So I think it's just going to depend on the system he gets into for sure, but does have quite a bit of upside, especially in our PPR leagues. That's what we're basing these tiers off of course. Tier 4, going to be a little murkier as we continue going on and a little bit bigger here. Tier 4 guys we have for you, going to be Eli Heidenreich, Jaden Ott, Jamari Taylor, Le'Veon Moss, and Adam Randall. Nobody in this tier that we are comfortable saying has even that we would necessarily predict is going to be getting day 2 capital. Somebody here could definitely sneak into that, but I think we expect these guys to be the start. And you can say tier 5, honestly, probably is pretty close to these guys of just being a running back that is going to be an injury or 2 away from some real fantasy relevance for us. Is there anybody either of you guys are willing to flag plant on that's not my guy that you think a decent shot at kind of sneaking into that day 2 type of range, or maybe the beginning of the 4th round.
I might. Do you have one, David?
I got one too, and I think they're different, so I don't care if you go first.
Yeah, I don't think this guy goes day 2. But I think he might sniff early round 4 potentially. It's Le'Veon Moss of Texas A&M. Just looking back on the profile, in his junior year in the SEC, he was really breaking out. The thing is the season ended with an ACL tear. But when you look at that year, he was pacing in the SEC to have 1,426 scrimmage yards and 16 touchdowns with 4.40 yards after contact per attempt, 0.21 missed tackles forced, and 1.56 yards per route run. That's what he was on pace for before he tore. It was both his ACL and MCL. So the numbers you're seeing on the screen right now are from 2025 when he came back from that injury. Clearly was not the same, in my opinion. And the yards per route run took a huge drop. He doesn't have a super strong receiving profile, but for somebody to be doing that in the SEC as a true junior, I think teams still do value when you do it in a good conference like that. If you look at his schedule, he's playing like Florida and LSU and Ole Miss, like some really strong programs. So he'd be the guy I'd be taking the shot on because I think there is talent there.
For me, the guy I want to talk about is Jamari Taylor out of Virginia. He is also a little shorter, but he's just shy of 200 pounds. So probably not going to be your full-time 3-down back, but like Jahmyr Gibbs was 199. Jamari Taylor's 199. Not trying to say he's Jahmyr Gibbs, just saying like that body type can work. And when you look at Taylor, first 4 years, small school, transferred to Virginia, SEC big school, pretty much maintained his efficiency metrics as a runner. Also rushed for over 1,000 yards, over 14 touchdowns. Was his first career year under 1 yard per out run, but he had over 40 receptions. So he's shown both small school and in the SEC that he can do it a bit as a receiver and a runner. Like I said, a little bit on the size concern. He's a 5th-year guy, so a little bit on the age. As you see there, he's a little bit older, as we talked about. Some of these guys a little bit older, unfortunately. But the production's there. I think he can be a decent runner and receiver. So, be interested to see where he ends up. Hopefully they get a chance to get on the field, though.
Me, if you've been following along with any of our mocks, it's no surprise that my guy I'm going to talk about here is just Eli Heidenreich. So you look at the 4.73 yards per out run. That is because he split time relatively equally between RB and wide receiver, played in an interesting, non-conventional offense. So the numbers are a little video game-esque. Of course, we want to admit that. This guy ran a 4.40, decent split at 1.55. Like he's fast enough, athletic enough, and has great hands, decent out of the backfield as a rusher. I think if this guy just gets an opportunity, like truly for fantasy purposes, like when he is the starting running back for a team, I think if he produces crazy numbers for a week where he gets 6 receptions and 80 yards and he puts up 16 points because of that, that's not impossible if he gets a start, right? Like I think that's a pretty realistic stat line. You add a touchdown and all of a sudden, I think you might be able to sell this guy for a 2nd and a 3rd, to people who see that he does this, and you can probably get him for a 3rd or maybe even a 4th in your rookie draft. Just depends on where he goes. He's a guy that I'm going to draft pretty much everywhere, and I think an NFL team might just fall in love with the unique skill set that this guy has. I would be shocked if he went day 2. I wouldn't be totally shocked, but I do think that early 4th or 4th round type of draft capital and a decent landing spot, I'm all in on him. Adam Randall, I know JP, that's a guy you've kind of been very interested in the receiving profile there. Do you mind just briefly telling us why you're in or out on him at this point?
Yeah, it's an interesting profile because he's a former wide receiver who converted to a running back, so he's got that skill set of a wide receiver. He also is 230 pounds. So you tell me receiving with ability to be a bruiser in between the tackles to maybe get the touchdown roll as well. I think that's got interesting upside. And quickly, I'll just touch on Jaden Ott here too. His first 2 seasons at Cal, he had 99 missed tackles forced and 72 receptions. Like that's his first 2 seasons in a Power 4 program. It was awesome. Then his junior year, injured, transfers to Oklahoma, doesn't really see the field. Not exactly sure why. So I still think that there's something there. His pro day numbers showed that he was a really good athlete too. So you say he's a good athlete. He was really good as a young player and has a receiving profile as well. That's why I thought he belonged here in this tier.
Yeah, and we were both talking just about that receiving profile back before we recorded here, right? Randall Heidenreich, a guy that can really just potentially have that, receiving upside. Think about Antonio Gibson, right? He's clearly shown that he's not a good NFL running back. I think he's a serviceable NFL running back, right? But he was great for fantasy when he got all of the opportunity. And a guy that is a receiver like this has that potential, right? To the sky is the limit from could be an RB1 when getting the work. We don't project these guys to get all the work. But if you're getting them in the third or even like the early fourth of a rookie draft, that is value as far as what upside they have. Any comments on Ott before tier 5, David?
Just a little bit of context. Unfortunately, there's still some questions about it, but he did suffer an AC sprain, shoulder sprain in camp. Not normally enough to derail an entire season, but I think that's why he got off to a slow start. Maybe there was something with his recovery, but it definitely concerning season this year. But like JP said, insane first 2 seasons. So for this group of players, I think he fits right in.
These are the third round of our rookie draft type of prospect, give or take. If we're getting these guys in the fourth round, pretty happy. No world at this point that we're really looking at the second round. So kind of just for a value point, the guys before us were the mid to late second in tier 3, and we're going to move on to tier 5. JP, can you let us know who those guys are?
5 guys in tier 5 here. We've got Desmond Reed, Roman Hemby, Kalon Black, Seth McGowan, and Terrion Stewart, who, David, do you want to go ahead and start with him? Because I know he's your guy.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you see efficiency numbers like this, how can he not be?
I didn't know elusivity went that high.
Yeah, I didn't know yards after contact per attempt or missed tackles first per attempt went that high. Well, mathematically I did, but there's definitely some red flags. He's an older player. As you can see, most of his career production came at a smaller school at Bowling Green. He's never had any elite seasons. He doesn't offer much as a rusher, but he forced a missed tackle on almost half of his attempts. Going back to 2018, looking at all drafted running backs, that's almost 10% than second place. That's just crazy. It's definitely possible he's nothing, but when you see these numbers, you think you get him out there on the field. If he can come anywhere near these numbers at the NFL level, he's going to be something special. I don't think he's probably going to be special, but like, man, you give me half these numbers and you're still usable. So just hard to ignore when you see something like this. And it's not on a small sample size at Virginia Tech either. It wasn't a great season, but he's still, it's not like he only had like, 20 carries or something. He's doing this. He had like 500 rushing yards, I think.
Definitely impressive. What worries me, not just with him though, just with this tier, right? We're looking at a 24-year-old running back, right? We're looking at Seth McGowan, a 24-year-old running back with some character issues, right? We've talked about that one in the past, just really briefly. He was arrested, actually spent some time incarcerated, break-in, robbery, marijuana was stolen, etc. So if the NFL drafts him, our advice is listen to what the NFL says, and if you have any ethical concerns about it, feel free to run your team how you will. I think he was a child when it happened. He was, 20. Of course, he was still a young adult, but people do stupid things. We're not going to judge him any harsher than the NFL does. And then Kalon Black, also at 24. Roman Hemby, 23. This is an old tier. Let's talk the Indiana guys just really briefly. Do you guys have a strong preference one way or the other, JP?
As of today, I don't. When I watched the college football playoff run, I thought that Kalon Black looked better. Also, what was really interesting was after the season, the long season they had, he showed up at the Senior Bowl and played. So I really respect him. I think he's a competitor, just an absolute dog. But Hemby's got a better receiving profile than he does. Hemby has 3 seasons of at least 33 plus receptions. So, like I said, my eye test says Kalon Black is better, but the receiving profile is better on Hemby. So, just talking it out loud here and looking at the ages, I think I'd probably go Hemby, but it's close right now, and draft capital will just swing me either way.
It's definitely really close for me as well. I agree that Kalon Black looked better in the playoff run for Indiana, but I've seen Hemby play a lot. I watched a lot of Big Ten football. I've always thought Hemby passed the eye test as well. And like you said, the better receiving profile for Hemby. So to me, I would give him the nod for sure. But, if Black goes in the 4th and Hemby goes in the 6th, then I'm going to probably flip that in my rankings.
I think I lean the receiving back, even if it goes before Hemby, unless the going before is day 2 capital. Honestly, I'm just throwing darts here. I don't really know with these two guys. Probably the correct thing is just to listen to the NFL. So then maybe I should care more about draft capital than I think I do in my initial analysis of these two guys. And then Reed, I believe he is 3'7". Is that correct, guys? Can you confirm that?
5'6" officially. Crazy. We thought it was going to be 5'8" was what was listed. Came in even shorter. And he's about 174 pounds. If you look at the receiving profile, really, really good. One of the best yards per route run, besides Eli Heidenreich, I believe, that we've seen in this whole group. And still only 21 years old. But man, does his upside seem very, very limited. If you're playing PPR, maybe he's got some usage there. But tough to bet on this type of size.
That's exactly right. Tough to bet on his size. And that yards per out run, again, going back to 2018, the second highest in their final season, only to Eli. And Eli Heidenreich's kind of a weird outlier in that situation anyway. So you could argue Desmond Reed had the best number, but too small, again, to carry the load. If he gets somewhere where he can get some 2-minute work and stuff, maybe he can be a PPR guy. But kind of funny that as we're talking through all the old guys, the only young guy is normal human sized.
Says the 6'5" guy, David. What do you know about normal human sized? No, I'm pretty much out. I'm pretty much out on a guy that is this size. I struggle to see a world for him to have real fantasy relevance, but he is young and he is quick and he is a really good receiver. So it's not
decent
impossible.
Return man too. So I mean, he might find himself on a roster for that reason.
So these are guys right now. We're probably saying we consider these as our 4th round selections, maybe late 3rd, early 4th, late 4th type. If we're grabbing any of these guys on a waiver wire after our rookie drafts, we're ecstatic because these are the types of running backs we want to roster. Even though I don't like Reed and I might abstain from drafting Reed just based off of his size, it's going to just depend on where he goes to. If he goes to a spot where I think they'll actually use him, right, then my tune might change a little bit. Off of the waivers, he's a running back. If I think he's going to make a team, if he gets signed, if he gets drafted in the 6th or 7th round, even if he's a UFA, he's absolutely a guy I'm interested in. So let's kind of wrap up. I'll let David go first here because I know I've kind of stolen this diatribe at times on just the philosophy of the position and how we're really viewing just running backs in our rookie drafts. And then later on, we'll talk about some other stuff. But David, I'll give you that first.
Sure. Yeah. If you've been following us for a while, if you're new, thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking around. You really want to have most of your bench spots as running backs if you're going to build a roster the way we build our rosters, at least. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. That's mostly because their usable weeks are going to be a lot more obvious than like a receiver or a tight end. You know what their usage is going to be, at least you think you do. If the guy in front of him gets hurt, you expect him to step up and get the volume. Volume goes a long way to predicting output for a running back in fantasy. The other side of that is if you're not going to use them, the whole league, it's obvious to the whole league. So you can sell them a lot easier too. You can say, hey, I noticed this guy, you're competing, you're in a big week, your running back got hurt, you need someone, give me a second for this guy and I'll throw you a third. Now all of a sudden your bench spot turns you into a 2nd round pick. These are the kind of guys you like to have at the bottom of your bench because when they hit a spike week, you're going to know it a lot easier than a receiver 4 or something.
And yeah, we've been preaching this. We're not alone in preaching this type of a philosophy either. You're going to hear this a lot. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and JP, I'm just going to throw this one to you. We love the 101. We love Jeremiah Love. Maybe if you're competing, you might want to think about adding a little bit to him to get to Bijan for a little more certainty. Maybe. It's a conversation for a different day. But outside of that, what are you doing if you're competing and you need running back? Do you view this class as much of a potential solution? Let's say you have the 109 and you need running back.
I mean, lately I've been rising a little bit more on Jonah Coleman, so I think I would hold just to see landing spots until the draft. But I think post-draft, yeah, if Jonah Coleman's 107 and the other 2 running backs get a bad landing spot, at that point I'm going to be shopping for some veterans. But I think right now you're just better advised to hold. If Evan Johnson and Jonah Coleman go day 2 with great spots, then I think you might be able to plug that guy in because I think both are very, very talented.
David, just kind of curious how you're approaching that as well. For me, I'm just going to say probably lean veteran production, but I think JP is right on holding till you're on the clock to try to maximize value unless it's just a value and offer you can't refuse.
I think in general, if I'm competing, I'm trying to turn my picks into known production because it's a little more predictable. But especially this year at running back, like I get holding, but I've been sending out offers. They're not super aggressive, but 107, 108, somewhere in there, that range of picks we're talking about. Can I get Chase Brown? Can I get Bucky Irving? Can I get Quinshon Judkins? Can I get Breece Hall? Maybe, those guys are probably aiming a little high. Maybe I got to add a small plus when I'm starting those conversations. I'm seeing if I can throw in, a backup running back or maybe a 2nd round pick or something because I really like those guys. And I think you can at least start those conversations there, but I'm not sending it for Josh Jacobs yet. I'm not sending it for certainly not like a Derrick Henry, but probably not even CMC, Saquon Barkley, those kinds of guys. Because I do want to wait and I want to see where Jonah lands. I want to see where these other running backs land because maybe I'll prefer the youth to those older veteran points.
Yeah, I do think the veteran points are more useful. I very often prefer more of the youth and risking it with the points and then try to use my 2nd to buy my 211 to buy Aaron Jones or something like that, or my 302 to take a shot on some other veteran running back that may or may not be starting and just try to have a handful of other guys in backfill. Because if you do hit on one of those guys, if you have the ability to hit on Jonah Coleman or Emmett Johnson becoming the next Bucky Irving, as far as like Emmett Johnson, I think that's a comp people will make for a slower guy who's, twitchy, but not necessarily breaking it for 60 yards, right? There's a lot of value in getting that guy at a young age of 22, right? So that's always appealing. I don't know if it's the best process, but I think I'm more likely to roll the dice on the rookies. So let us know in the comments below how you guys like to kind of handle that position here. Definitely different ways of approaching it, but I think our option, regardless of if we have slightly differing opinions on small things, is always value. Take the best value at running back. Really just roster construct around as many useful running backs as possible, like David said. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Dyno Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen or review. And from all of us here at the Dyno Construction Podcast, until next time.